Welcome back to the One Decision Away podcast. I'm your host, Elijah Mang, and as promised in this episode, we're going to be talking about how to stop suppressing your desires and how to actually own your desires, how to actually own the things that you want and go for them and get them. So, as I mentioned in the last episode, I mentioned that I was going to do this topic, but also I shared a quote from Albert Einstein. And that quote is that imagination is more important than knowledge, for knowledge is limited to all we now know and understand, while imagination embraces the entire world and all there ever will be to know and understand. And so this is actually very important when it comes to owning your desires, because you have to realize the nature of desire itself is not evil, it's not bad, it's not something we need to avoid or completely let go of, like some Buddhist principles might share. Now, I don't think that's a bad thing, and I'm not speaking of desire in a way that contradicts all of that, but just bringing a new perspective and understanding to it to help you own and stop suppressing your desires, because these are things that have helped me do the same. And this is kind of a journey that I've found myself on recently, is realizing like I had some specific desires that I was not owning. And so it's important to address, like, become aware of the whole of you, not just a part of you, and then neglect certain parts like your desires, which are very important. And so understanding the nature of desire itself comes down to this: desire is expansion, desire is natural, desire is spiritual, desire is expansive, and desire is great because desire allows us to continue creating new experiences for ourselves. And in my perspective, life is about experience. And so experiencing new things, experiencing the things that you desire to experience is not bad at all. It's great. It's great because it allows for the expansion of your consciousness, the expansion of your life, experiencing new things, experiencing different things. And it embraces the unknown. It embraces all that there ever will be to know and understand, because it's not based on the past. Desire is often based on the clarity that we've gained from the experiences that we've had in the past. So it's not based on like limitations from the past. It's actually expansion of those limitations from the past, if that makes sense. Expansion of those limitations, expansion beyond those limitations is a better way of putting it. So embracing that expansion beyond the limitations that you've experienced in the past. Now here's the thing. So often people are turned away from desire because it is something, it's like in this insatiable kind of search. And there's the idea that if you are caught up in desire, then you can't really have peace because you're constantly searching for something else to satisfy that desire. But I want to take a little spin on that and look at it in a different way, because having desire and embracing your desire and pursuing your desires doesn't mean that you can't be peaceful and fulfilled and content in this moment. So I look at those two things a little bit differently. Like, you can get to a point where there's this underlying level of contentment regardless of what's happening in your life. You could be crying, going through sadness, going through a tough time, and still have an underlying feeling of contentment for life, for being alive, for existence. And it may take a while on the personal development journey and just reconnecting with yourself to get to a point where you can feel that, because it did for me. That's not something I ever used to feel, but it's now something that I feel regularly. I feel this underlying contentment. Like, I have problems, whatever, I still feel contentment. And I also still feel desire to continue expanding. So it's not like I'm satisfied and, I am satisfied, but it's not like I'm satisfied in the way of just relaxing and like I have no ambition, I have no drive or anything like that. That's not true. I'm satisfied, but I'm also continually expanding and continually pursuing these new desires in ways that I want to live, because these new desires often come from our imagination. They are created by us or downloaded to us. I don't know exactly where they come from. I don't know if any of us do. might be able to, might be easy to identify certain circumstances that kind of birthed the creation of new desires, but where they come from, I don't know. And so here's the thing: it's like desire is also often perceived as something that's not spiritual, that it goes against spirituality for whatever reason. But if you're truly aware of your spiritual nature, of the nature of the universe, and tuned into it, then you realize that there is nothing that isn't spiritual. There's absolutely nothing. And desire is one of the core, key, major things that continues to contribute to the expansion of the universe as a whole. The expansion of you, the expansion of your mind, the expansion of your consciousness, and the expansion of the collective consciousness, the expansion of the universe itself. Because it's this continual clarification and unfolding of new things, of new experiences. And without that, I mean, if there was no desire, nothing would happen. And so that space of no desire is okay if we're talking about non-duality, if we're talking about like spirituality in the sense of where everything came from to begin with, before there was this separation into duality. Before we all became like these individual fragments of the collective consciousness. So like the individual consciousness and then the collective consciousness. Individual consciousness is one with the collective consciousness, but we get to experience like our own individual consciousness in this life because of the separation into duality. And so I think it's not something to be avoided, it's something to be embraced, because there's so much possibility. And it's just like there's so much in this world that has been infiltrated by shame, by guilt, by value judgments of right and wrong, good or bad. And just like this perpetual judgment of people doing things in the way that they're doing them, living their lives in the way that they're living them, or giving in to desire. But it doesn't need to be like that. We don't need to project shame or guilt onto other people or onto ourselves for just owning and embodying what comes naturally to us, which is our desires. I think the part about it for me that really helps me to just fully accept and own it is like nothing would be expanding if we didn't continue to follow our desires and create new things. Nothing would be expanding. And so here is the nuance. Here is the important aspect to differentiate, I suppose. And that is, where are your desires coming from? Because to speak on something that's pretty easy to understand, if a lot of our desires are coming from this place of lust, like a desire for more intimacy and connection, but it's like this lust, it's not actually love, then chances are it's not coming from a pure place within us. It's not coming from us being in our embodied space of presence and love and acceptance and worthiness and feeling whole in this moment. It's coming from a place of us feeling separate in this moment, of us feeling less than, of us feeling not whole, of us feeling like a half, like we need somebody else to complete us, or we need that intimacy and connection to complete us, to fill this void that we're feeling of loneliness, of sadness. And so in that aspect, your desire may not be coming from a place of love or expansion or purity. It may be coming from a place of lack. And so that's why it's, regardless of what you're talking about, I mentioned this in the last episode about uncovering your motivations and everything. Regardless of what you're talking about, the one thing that is always important is where it's coming from. And so desire itself is not bad. Desire itself is great. But where is it coming from is the question. Because if it's coming from that place of like this insatiable craving, then it's coming from a place of you not feeling whole in the moment. And so it's not really a pure desire, it's more of a craving. It's more of you're seeking to fill some kind of void, some kind of emotional hole that you're holding on to. And so in that aspect, you want to address that. You don't want to just say, oh, desire is great. I'm going to follow my desire wherever it takes me. Because if your desire is coming from a place of pain that is seeking to either project itself into the world or project that pain onto other people or get revenge or anything like that, then it's not pure. And any action that you take in the direction of that desire, which if it's not pure, then I wouldn't consider it a desire, but more of a craving. Any action that you take in the direction of that craving when it's not coming from a pure place is not only not going to produce good outcomes, but it has the very likely opportunity of producing very negative outcomes, of just creating and perpetuating the suffering that you're feeling, the suffering that is creating the seeking of whatever craving it is, right? It's coming from this emotional void that we have, this hole that we're trying to fill, or something that we're trying to receive or feel or not feel. Because there's the thing is, with these cravings and with addiction in general, it all comes down to our unwillingness to feel a certain emotion. We get addicted to things because it helps us to not feel a certain emotion that we're holding on to. When really the emotion wants to come up, it wants to come up so that it can be released. That's how your energy system works. It's releasing, and sometimes tension builds up, but then it needs to be released. And so those things want to be released, but we're resisting it. We're not allowing that release. We're not, and sometimes this can be difficult because we unconsciously do it. And so then it's like, how do I actually allow the release? And I have multiple episodes on that. One of them specifically is how to stop letting emotions get in your way, or something along those lines. I have a few different videos on emotional release and stuff, so go check that out. But it's this seeking to satisfy a craving or fill a void. And it's not coming from a pure place. It's coming from fear, essentially. It's coming from separation. It's coming from lack. And so the reality is that in acting from that craving, you're only going to perpetuate the negative feelings that are creating that craving in the first place. You're only going to perpetuate negative outcomes. You're only going to perpetuate your suffering and this emotional lack of love that you're feeling. And so when I speak of owning your desires, I'm speaking of owning your pure desires. And if it's not pure, but it's something you genuinely desire, then how can you shift the motivation for that desire? If it's coming from a place of lack, is that something that you can shift so that you can embody a state of wholeness within yourself first and then pursue that desire? Is that possible? Does it make sense? If you change the motivation behind it, do you still have the same desire, or does it go away? Those are the questions you need to be asking yourself when it comes to your desires, because this stuff is so important to navigate. In life, it's not about learning all these new things and taking all these new things in. Oftentimes it's about letting go. It's about deconditioning all of this programming that we've picked up from society, from news and media, from our parents, from school, from all different kinds of things in our life. It's about letting go. It's about clearing everything out and finding what is real and true within yourself. And when you truly find what that is, it always comes back to wholeness. If it's true, it always comes back to wholeness. It always comes back to love. It always comes back to worthiness. It always comes back to purity. It always comes back to connection, because those things are the nature of your being. They are who you are. And so often in life, the process of life itself is this process of experiencing the things that we don't want, experiencing the opposites, the contrast, so that we can clarify and understand who we actually are and what we actually do want, what actually resonates with us. Because none of the pain eventually you're going to get over it. It might resonate with you now, but eventually you will find the truth of who you are beyond that pain. When you're able to process and heal it and release it and free yourself from the fear that's at the core of all of your pain. And so owning your desires is not just about black or white thinking. It's about investigating the mental processes, the emotional processes that are driving you and that are creating the things that you want in your life. So like if you just write down a list of a bunch of things that you want and look at that list, then you can categorize that list into two different things. Is it coming from a place of purity of love, or is it coming from a place of fear and lack and disconnection, where like you're seeking connection, you think you might get some kind of connection out of doing this, out of pursuing this desire, which is really a craving, but so often it only perpetuates it. It doesn't actually solve the issue of a lack of connection that you're feeling. So it's not black and white. Desire is not just like this good or bad thing. I mean, I think it's great, but the context is also important. It's not bad. It's not spiritual. It's where is it coming from? That's the question. So I hope this was valuable to you. I really would love if you share your thoughts, feedback, comments, questions, anything down below. Drop a comment and share. I would love, to get into some kind of conversation, whatever. And maybe answer some questions that you have. If I left anything hanging in this for you, and you need more clarity, you have any questions, I would love to answer them in the next episode. And make sure you like, comment, and subscribe if you're not subscribed already. It's greatly appreciated. And I look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Remember, you're only one decision away. You're one decision away. Sometimes you just need to decide and just get into these investigation processes of investigating yourself. Because as I mentioned in my last episode, self-awareness is the key to freedom. Self-awareness is the key to freedom because you are the creator of your life. And the more that you become aware of how you're creating your life, the more that you gain the ability to change it and to create it in the way that you want it to be. Not just what you've accepted and taken on throughout your life or felt like you should be doing, and so you do it just naturally. No, create from creativity, from pure creation, not from recreating the past, recreating what's familiar, but from pure creation. Like if there was nothing to fear, what would you do? If there was nothing that could go wrong, what would you be doing and creating in your life? That's the question. These are all great questions to ask yourself. So I encourage you to do more investigating into all of these things, into these desires, into what's a craving and what's a desire, so that you can navigate, okay, this is pure. This is kind of an illusion coming from fear. It's not actually going to satisfy that craving that I feel, right? Until you become whole within yourself and operate from that place, lead from that place, all right? I just wanted to add that. But thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.